Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. Awesome sports day yesterday. We're gearing up for March Madness. Playoffs are around the corner. Baseball's around the corner. You can smell it in the air. We got an 83-point game in the NBA from Bam Adebayo. A monster renege in the NFL with Max Crosby, who we had put down in pen for the Baltimore Ravens. They gave up 2 first-round picks, looked at his knee, and they said, never mind. We take it back. We take it back after everybody's already done business for the last 2 days. The Raptors do their thing again, where they look horrible in the second half against a very good team. Canada wins a game where they get awesome pitching. And, man, Owen Casey still just looks great. Mark DeRosa makes a monstrous fool of himself. And your Toronto Maple Leafs have truly climbed into the bottom 5. Like, they're not there yet, but they're in the mix, brother. They have done it. They have made this a conversation. They have made this Leaf season compelling from the standpoint of you have something to hope for. Because honestly, like, this is supposed to be a death march and it's going to be ugly and nobody's going to have fun, right? Like, it's not fun to watch your team tank, but it does make things more interesting. You have to admit it. Like, I got into this with McKee last night because he was like, I kind of wanted them to beat the Habs. And I was like, you get out of here with that. Get absolutely out of here with that. They needed to lose last night, and they did lose last night. And all of a sudden, all these Leaf games feel like must lose. You must lose. Oh, you must find a way to lose. I think that my buddy James Myrtle put it out there a couple of days ago that essentially the Leafs can win 4 more games the rest of the way. They can win 4 more games, and historically that would put them in a position where they should be picking in the bottom 5. And that the teams that are on pace to be there, like that they track for that as well. And listen, being in the bottom 5 doesn't guarantee that you're going to be in the bottom 5. Also, I'm very surprised at the amount of Leaf fans who don't fully understand how this trade works. I never thought it was complicated. People are like, what if they finish bottom 5 in the standings, but they don't get the bottom 5 pick? Like, if they fall out of the bottom 5. It's like, yeah, then they lose the pick. It's very straightforward. If the Leafs jump up into the lottery, into the top 5 lottery, they keep the pick. If the pick falls outside of that, the Leafs don't get it. Has nothing to do with where they actually are in the standings. Where they're at in the standings, that purely matters from a lottery odds standpoint. And again, it's far from a guarantee. I think that yesterday with their loss, they dropped to 6th in points percentage. And again, this 6th is from the bottom, okay? Everything I'm talking about here, like it's a playoff chase, is from the bottom. From the bottom, from the bottom, from the bottom. They are dreadful. They are terrible. They are on this unbelievable losing streak that they haven't seen since a full tank season in 2015-16. They don't play consistently outside of maybe sometimes their goaltenders. Yeah, it's a tire fire. But that's the thing. It's such a tire fire that you need something to look forward to. And for me, looking forward to an offseason where maybe they're going to get a new president, maybe they're going to get a new general manager, they're going to get a new coach. Maybe they sign a halfway interesting free agent, maybe they make a trade of consequence. Like, it's all meh. It's nothing really overly exhilarating. Maybe we'll get there and maybe we'll have that thing. But as of this moment, yeah, I would say that this losing streak is I had more fun watching them during the winning when they went out west and they beat Colorado and it looked like they turned a corner and they were playing connected hockey and it felt as though Stetcher and Lawton were giving them an element that they hadn't had before and they were playing fairly inspired and yeah, they were still getting outshot and yeah, some of the analytics still weren't beautiful, but it did feel different during that time. It really did. And I've already mentioned this, but looking back on that, if they do fall outside the bottom 5, if they do end up handing the Boston Bruins over the 6th pick, the 7th pick, or the 8th pick, I don't know how much it really matters. Honestly, like, If the Bruins get the pick, it's going to be a great pick. And I trust them to pick someone who will punish the Maple Leafs for years and years and years and years to come. And we'll be watching whoever that kid is at some point, likely get past the Stanley Cup from Fraser Minton and have to hear about it forever. That's just the way that you think it's going to go down. But either way, to have something you can hope for and to see them just spiral out and lose this way, I find it more compelling. I find at least I have a rooting interest in these games now. And I don't have to look at this with just like, okay, well, I hope they win. I hope they win these meaningless games so that what? So that, again, Boston's pick can fall 2 slots. Like, they're in the mix, man. They're in the mix. You got 4 games you can win the rest of the way. And for me, I don't know. Maybe I'm a sicko. Maybe this is just like the ultimate sign of a depressing standpoint for a fan base. But having at least a little thing that you can cling to, the idea that the Toronto Maple Leafs could keep their pick top 5. And of course, I'm pretty sure that if they do, if they make that pick, then next year it becomes unprotected. Then they definitely don't have a pick in 2029. So it's like these problems aren't going anywhere. It's not like they're set up in a good position. But what it would do from an optimism standpoint, what it would do from just even, God, pushing away some of the embarrassment of that Carlo trade, a little bit of it for a little while, if you could land that top 5 pick and give people a little bit more to hope for, because that's all you need. That's really, when it comes down to it, all you really need is a little bit of hope as a sports fan. That's what you can ask for. Having none of it, that stinks. And that's where they've been at. And now that's kind of shifting. Nick Kypreos, he tried to break the internet the other day. He tried to just shatter every Leaf fan on social media. He comes on Real Kyper and Bourne, doesn't prompt his co-host, and just delivers an absolute atom bomb about Matthew Knies. He joins me now. What's up, buddy? How are we doing?
I don't know about the bomb. Come on, we're just spitballing.
Yeah,
we're just
all right.
talking. We're just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, all right. But
right.
Here's the thing, though. When you say something like that, it's an educated idea, right? Like you dug into something with Matthew Knies, and it's not like if I come up with an educated idea. Let's put it that way. And yeah, it was uber compelling. And then yesterday, the Leafs and the Habs play, and it's impossible not to sit there during the contest and think about what that trade would have been and how that game would have felt if all of a sudden you were looking across the aisle and Matthew Knies was sitting on Montreal's bench and we were having conversation.
Wow. Yeah, I get that part, and I get the fact that it's considered, the historically, anyways, one of the best rivalries out there. I get all of that, but you got to do what's best for your hockey club,
sure.
And I don't think in 2026 you can look at it and say, well, we can't send him to Montreal. We just can't. Like, I don't think those days are here today. I think you got to do what's best for your club, and if it means trading him to one of your best rivals, then do it if you think you're going to improve.
So I understand that, and to a degree, I agree with it. Like I do. Like I think that if you presented me with the option of, hey, they're going to trade this player, and you're going to get back materially worse, or you're going to get the best trade package available, but you have to swallow the idea of a guy playing for a rival, I'd rather have the guy play for the rival. I also think that if you do a move like that, it actually adds a little bit of juice between the two teams. I think it's a little different if you're talking about historically great guys. Like I remember when Matt Sundin, when it was that trade deadline and there were rumors that he could go out the door to Montreal, that to me is where it becomes a little bit more uncomfortable, and I don't like it as much. I just think that it's too weird to see all-time greats for your team play for and create memories for that opposing fan base. But if you're talking about Matthew Knies, I think that, okay, fine. If that was the best trade package available, Montreal, obviously, super, super deep farm system right now. A bunch of guys that you would really think Toronto would be very interested in terms of trying to pivot this team to be younger and add a couple of pieces like maybe a defenseman, maybe a center. But what I do find, like, especially curious about this, Nick, and what I wanted to dig in with you on today is Matthew Knies this past offseason, like, he didn't cause a fuss with restricted free agency. Like, this is one of the first guys that's been like a star level talent, right? And clearly not to the degree of the Matthews, Marner, Nylanders, right? When they went into their RFA years. But still, like a guy that was coming off of a hyper-productive season, a guy who has size and skill, which in this league is becoming more of a rarity. He signs up for your team for a 6-year contract at what was a very reasonable number, right? Some people had that number higher, and it seemed as though he settled in on something that was like, hey, appropriate, nobody complained about it. Certainly been a down season. Certainly been some injuries, which he's talked about publicly. But I am curious from your perspective when you've had conversations about this guy, what it is that has caused him to all of a sudden be in the mix of conversations for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because you would think that if you've got a kid like that who's committed, you've got a kid who you just signed to a 6-year contract and who's 23 years old, even if you're going through a rebuild, that would probably be one of the last pieces that you would be bringing up to other teams as potentially open in a deal.
I get everything that you're saying, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm a very sensitive guy like you, right? So you wanna look at Matthew Knies and look at all the things that you just said, that he's been a good soldier for your hockey club, and he took a very friendly deal for us when he probably could have jacked it up even more.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're telling me is that you're putting Matthew Knies ahead of the hockey club first. And we are in a tough business, and we're right down to, what have you done for me lately?
Mm-hmm.
And where are you today? And where's the leverage on all of you, just not Matthew Knies? And you can't deny, JD, that he may be the quickest way to get your team better with more players. He's the one guy that can drive, I think, a deal that can maybe change the look of your hockey club moving forward, maybe even above Willie right now and Austin. So I have to explore that. I have to look at taking one Matthew Knies and turning him into 3. And he's the guy to do it. So if it's not Montreal with their abundance of prospects, maybe it's Utah, maybe it's another hockey club. But that's my job right now, is to take the here and now and not go back and say, well, you gave us a 6-year deal that's really friendly and you've been a good soldier for us so far. I can't trade you. I mean, we're far beyond that point right now. And that's why I think the Leafs are exploring this and probably will be at the draft and throughout the summer. They're in tough. They're in really tough. And I get the fact that you'd like to save the top 5 pick and give the Leafs fans something to hang their hat on. But you're just kicking it down the road. You lose it. You lose that pick next year, and you lose it the following year to Philadelphia. And those picks become unprotected, and those picks can become not 1, but 2 first overall picks. Now, you tell me what you'd rather have. You'd either have a top 5 pick this year or have those potentially be first overall picks in the next 2 years. Pick your poison.
Yeah, I think that for me, I would take the guarantee that you land your top 5 pick this year, and then the following 2 seasons you don't have your first, and that at least educates part of your decision making, right? Like, the thing that always made this difficult in terms of the retool or the rebuild or whatever you're going to do here was in part the not owning of your own pick. But if you could tell me, hey, what is a very top-heavy draft, right? Like, you talk to Books, you talk to people around the league, everybody's really high on not just Gavin McKenna or Verhoff. They're saying that this is very good in terms of your top 5. So if you're Toronto and you can add that prospect for the next couple of years, I think you do it even at the expense of the potential risk of the first overall picks, right? Like, that would just be me personally. If people had differentiating opinions, I would say that's fine. Maybe you do just want to get rid of one of these picks next year. And then maybe if it's a disaster next season where it's top 10 protected, you're hoping to kind of be able to potentially get back in that mix. But I like the certainty of it. And I certainly like where they're at as an organization, where they're dealing with so little in the cupboards as they're trying to make these decisions, that they would end up with that first pick. Or that top 5 pick. But to your point about Knies, I agree with what you're saying in terms of you have to basically be open-minded to a variety of different ideas. where I think I get caught up in this when I'm thinking about it is, okay, so as we mentioned, Montreal has all these prospects, right? Reinbacher, Haig, right? Like they're loaded. And they were rumored to be in on the Robert Thomas deal. And so maybe a piece of this was like they explored that. The price was too high. They pivoted. Knies fits their organization, blah, 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 blah. We can understand that piece of it, right? But that's like a retool move. Like that's like a real reset, get younger thing. But by the sounds of what you're saying, it's more realistic that if they're dangling Knies out there, that they're looking at guys who are in the NHL right now. Like if they were doing this trade with Montreal, that it's more of the like Doc type of players, like the getting a couple of different pieces to grow out your lineup at the expense of a star and maybe less prospect capital, which I think some people would have an issue with primarily because they'd be looking at that and going, well, you're taking away from some of your future to reinvest it in Austin Matthews, who has 2 years left on his deal and there's some uncertainty there, and William Nylander. And that to some people, I think, is what would be a little bit more untenable for them or unpalatable for them.
Yeah, I still don't have a strong sense that they're moving a 23-year-old to go get 27-year-olds or 28-year-olds to go for it right now. But I mean, you got to consider what that means to Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander here moving forward. You know, whether or not 20-year-olds or 21-year-olds can help them, or ultimately will you be in a position where you got to flip those guys too? And then, of course, that is your ultimate rebuild. But I tend to agree with that you can't move a 23-year-old for guys older to continue to go for it.
Agree.
You know, the question is, again, last night, the past 7 or 8 games, you know, even with Willie and Austin in your lineup, like, what are you looking at in the next few years if you don't go down the path of trying to stock some sort of look around, you know, early 20 players? Like, what's in store here? Is there still a world that you keep Austin and Willie for the next 2 or 3 years? And then again, with the picks going to Boston and Philly, how are you going to get this team just in the mix to get a playoff spot? Forget about contention. How do you get them back as early as the next few years, knocking on the door in the playoffs? Because last night is another prime example of a team that just isn't ready to get back into the top 16 next year, not as is.
Yeah, no, listen, I think that the same thing that you were talking about of doing what's best for your hockey club long term, that has to be the application with everything. Because as difficult of a situation you're in where, you know, again, if you end up picking top 5, your next 2 seasons are unprotected picks. That is a daunting proposition for an organization to have. The one thing I would say is what I don't want to have happen with the Leafs, and I think most people would agree with me, is the idea that because you don't own those picks, that your decision-making is altered by that of being like, well, we have to make sure that those picks are not premium ones. We have to make sure that we're not embarrassed by 2 top 10 picks going out the door the 2 following seasons. If you think that retooling or rebuilding, which one, is the best option for your hockey club long-term to return to contention, that's the path that you have to take no matter how uncomfortable it is. And that's why it's like, okay, with last thing on the Knies piece, because I do want to explore that a little bit deeper, but it's like these guys pay attention to stuff. And Knies knew his name was out there. And when these stories sort of like, you know, get bigger and bigger and bigger, I do wonder about, you know, when you mention how we're sensitive guys, how, all right, but the business is the business. But if you're Matthew Knies and you just took that contract and you just signed up long-term to be the Maple Leafs, you have one down season, all of a sudden your name's in the trade mix, I don't know, I'd be feeling some kind of way about it. I wouldn't trust the organization to the same extent. And so, yeah, like if and when they revisit these conversations in the offseason, like, do you think that this thing has like a really good shot? A really good shot is tough to do. I hate doing like percentages with these kind of guys. But do you think that it's more likely now to happen that people are aware his name was out there?
For sure. And I think, you know, when you're when you're a top player in this league and you're making that type of money, and you look around the room and you see shows like ours,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got friends and family that are constantly telling you what they're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of it,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to learn to manage it, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with it, especially in a market like Toronto, especially in markets in Canada. And it's just part of it. And I thought he handled it really well, Matthew Knies, the other day when he was asked about it. He kind of just said it's almost like a badge of honor now to be talked about like this, because
Mm.
everybody else seems to be as well. So again, I'm sure there's going to be conversations amongst the Leafs and Matthew Knies and all their players. They got exit strategy or exit meetings coming up. And I'm sure at some point, whether it be the player or the agent, there's going to be conversations. They know where they stand in their contract and what they have for protection and non-protection. And at the end of the day, I think whether you're the Leafs or Matthew Knies, you got to be pros about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to just see the reality here. The team is in the basement, and like, you've got to be looking at all options to try to get better. And I think there has to be a level of respect from the players to the organization to understand that, and just look at your contract, look at your rights,
Mm-hmm.
and be pros about it. And I think Matthew Knies showed that the other day.
So he handled it fairly well. And that's as far as we know as of this moment, right? Him saying it's a badge of honor and it potentially being out there. And again, there you can understand the reasons as to why, as you just went over. The question becomes, if you're starting to explore moves like that's a pretty big position to take, right? Like moving off of Matthew Knies, 23-year-old power forward who was the gem of the organization just a year ago after one down
Yeah.
season. The question then becomes, all right, if you're thinking about that, do you believe that the Leafs now, like they weren't going to do it at the deadline? There was never going to be a Matthews trade at the deadline. They were never going to approach a guy with a full new move at the deadline, and they weren't going to do the same thing with Nylander. But is your sense heading into this offseason that if they're going to be creative with a Knies deal, that it could actually be the Maple Leafs that go to those two guys and have hard and frank discussions about what their futures are, and whether it could actually be the Toronto Maple Leafs being the ones that are saying, you know what, we actually feel like we want to explore these options as well, the nuclear options.
2 years ago, Brad Treliving said everything's on the table. I
Yeah.
asked him about that last week. He said he didn't want to make any profound statements, but he must feel the same way. And I don't think he's doing his job if he's not having those type of conversations with all of them at this point. Like, you can't get much worse than the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are the worst looking hockey club in the league right now, and they are playing like they are the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Like, no one saw this coming. And how long does it go here? You're cheering for losses. You're cheering for them to be outshot 17-4, like they were last night to
Mm-hmm.
start the game. Like, you've got to be proactive here and figure out a way how you're going to dig up yourself out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should look at the Vancouver Canucks with Quinn Hughes. And that guy had more status, more, considered one of the best defensemen in the league in Vancouver. They move him out for 4 pieces, and people in that market were actually excited about some of the faces here. Now, can you turn Matthew Knies into a top prospect, a top power forward, a guy that comes in at 6'5" or 6'6" and is considered, a Matthew Knies type of player?
Mm-hmm.
And they're out there. Utah's got a few. I mean, if you turn Matthew Knies into another power forward who's 2 or 3 years younger with tremendous upside, plus does that re-energize the marketplace and feel like they've got something to look forward to in the next few years? You may have to suck it up. You may have to miss the playoffs again next year. But can they come back in 3 years with a multitude of players that look like your next leaders for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
Again, that's what the Leafs have to weigh out here, not only going into the draft, but all summer long.
Yeah, I just think that if you were going to, and again, it's an in the moment feel, and it's the Berkey line of if you listen to the fans, you're going to be sitting amongst them. But if I had to guess, the prevailing sentiment amongst the fan base would be they'd probably rather see a trade involving Matthews now or Nylander now than something involving Matthew Knies to pivot around those two players and, triple down on some new core around those guys where you're trying to extend their window as they enter their age 30 seasons. That's just the way that I would be looking at it. And it brings up that Nylander thing yesterday where, I don't know if you read anything into it. I didn't, but it is worth noting. He gets asked by the media about how they're feeling. He goes, yeah, it's tough to be optimistic right now. And he's got like the smile on his face still, like he still hates doing the media stuff so much in terms of trying to dig in on it seriously. But then he goes, you hope, they asked, is it going to be a 1-year deal? And he replied, I hope so, because if not, and then he trailed off. And do you read into the if not, or like you think that's something? Or do you think that's just a guy who's kind of just answering a question and going like, I don't know what to say about that.
Even if we check those comments to the side, right, and make nothing of them, just look big picture, JD. Mm-hmm. If you move off of Knies and his potential to bring you back 3 or 4 pieces, Willie's right there.
Yeah.
Right? A talented guy that could put a few teams over the top here. Not to mention how much people would pay to see him. Mm-hmm. He could be the guy that you move off of Knies and focus on what Willie Nylander's potential would be to bring you back in a trade. So I did hear that they were open to have conversations about Willie, and they should. Like it shouldn't come to a shock to anybody. Again, they're one of the worst teams in the league here. So I would explore everything, including Willie and Austin going into this off season and seeing what kind of return I can get and how fast I can get this market rejuvenated and have them look forward to something. But Willie's name, isn't a non-starter for the Toronto Maple Leafs anymore, as it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I did find it curious that his name has largely been absent from these conversations, right? Like it's been Matthews, and it's understandable because of the contract, right? And it's just different with Nylander having the long-term security versus Matthews and the uncertainty and not wanting to get caught in that Quinn Hughes situation where you're bad again next year. And then all of a sudden he's saying, move me before a deadline. He's got a full no move. And he tells you one destination he wants to be at. And you're essentially over a barrel trying to get back as few pieces or as many pieces as you possibly can, negotiating against a team that knows they have all of the leverage. So I understand why his name, him being Matthews, was far greater than all of the conversations with Nylander. But yeah, I'm with you in terms of I think that all of these guys should absolutely be on the table. And that if you think that there's a move that you can make right now that materially improves your chances of becoming a contender again, it involves a guy who I think is turning 30 this year or just turned 30 already. Like, yeah, I think you got to be doing that, Kip. Okay, the biggest question in all this, though, is, man, I got to give you a lot of credit. I thought you did the Tree Living interview extremely well. Like, I liked the tone of the interview. I liked the questions. I think you guys asked everything that needed to be heard or questioned. And it's a difficult time, right? And Tree Living's a great guy. I know you know him. Like, anybody that's met that guy is not like, wow, what a jerk. Like, I don't have any, it's not a stone cold-blooded human being. So I thought that it was a really strong interview. But the biggest thing was like when you were like, are you the man for the job moving forward? And he's like, yeah, that's for people above me to understand. I'm going to do the job best I can while I'm still in it. But I take accountability, blah, 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 blah. The question, though, is becoming, are you getting a sense now in terms of what his job security is actually looking like after this deadline? Because for me, what I had gathered was he was actually the front runner to keep the position heading into the deadline, that it wasn't a certainty that he was going to be gone. And that ultimately, sure, they were possibly going to explore a few different options, but if he had a good deadline, that would actually really be a feather in his cap in terms of retaining this position as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Where do you think it sits as of today? Because if they're exploring everything, obviously it includes management, but I'm not certain what the waters look like in terms of their ability to go out there and pluck a top 5 executive, especially given the state of the franchise, and if there's a mandate to try to be competitive as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent question from your side right now for me. And I got to tell you, every day that goes by is, I think he's one step closer to still being the guy to lead the Leafs into next season. And I only say that on a gut feel. I only say that because we do know that he's put in tremendous work at the trade deadline, including exploring all these options. Now, if you really think about it, if you're, ownership, in this case, Rogers, or the CEO, Keith Pelly, I mean, what does it mean if he's putting all this work in and you decide to make changes in May or June? And now you've got a new guy coming in, and every conversation that's been had on Matthew Knies or Willie Nylander kind of gets, flushed down the toilet. And you got a guy that's saying, no, I really like Matthew Knies. We're going to keep him.
Yeah.
And you're already behind the 8 ball. And we look at the Nashville Predators, and they've been looking for a new general manager or a new president of hockey ops. And there's going to be other teams now that are going to make changes really quick here. And does that put the Leafs behind the 8 ball if they're still contemplating Brad Treliving? And I mean, it's a race sometimes to get replacements. And we're gonna, if you're the Leafs, you're gonna be up against a few teams now, looking for new people to come in. So I don't get that sense right now. I don't know how you feel, but every day that moves forward, I think, is another day where I think Brad Treliving feels like he's going to be the guy to lead this retool or rebuild moving forward. The question the Leaf fans have to ask themselves are they okay if it's Brad Treliving, Craig Berube coming back next year,
No.
or does that put Brad Treliving and perhaps even Keith Pelly in a predicament of, okay, can all 3 of us come back next year, or do we still have to make one change there, and will it be Craig Berube? And if it's one thing that you can still look at, for me, is the fact that the team still looks like it needs better structure on the ice.
Yeah.
Again, a look, JD, that is very consistent from game to game as they come out and they get outshot 17-4, 20-6, and they're behind the 8 ball. Like, I get Marner's not there, and I get that they've lost a little bit of confidence, but it's really important for Craig Berube here moving forward to have a better look. I think at times last night the effort was there. They pushed hard. They look at times like they can compete, but you still got 16 games here. You still got to show that there's tremendous structure in what you do. No matter what. And I think that's an important piece here moving forward for Craig Berube.
Yeah.
If he wants to save his job, he's got to have a better look here to end the season.
Personally, I think his fate is sealed, that there's just no way that you can bring him back after the results of this year. And yes, that inconsistency with the structure, the seemingly way that, the team has looked checked out on him. Again, you guys mentioned on your show, once you question the heart of players, I think you lose a lot of players. I talked to Versteeg about this months ago when his name first popped up on the chopping block. The idea that once your coach starts giving you we got to have a better effort, and not the X's and O's, it's really tough to keep players' attentions because they start to go like, okay, this guy doesn't have the answer. The thing that you mentioned there, though, that's so salient to all of this in terms of Treliving's future is the stuff about, man, are you really letting a guy who's not going to be here next year have conversations about Matthew Knies? Like, one of the most important pieces in your organization, flat out, no debate. if he's having those types of convos with teams around the league and you're allowing him the leverage to say, yep, we're moving off of this guy, does that seem like a lame duck GM? Because it sure doesn't to me. That sure seems like, okay, you're the guy that's in charge of this operation. You're the guy that's going to be sticking around. The only subsequent question that I think gets asked is, could it be a hybrid situation where they do keep Brad Treliving, or likely keep Brad Treliving, but they actually ask to bring in a president? So that's the way that you go after a Doug Armstrong type, where it's like, hey, we kind of want this 1 year maybe awkwardness with Brad where he gets the opportunity, but he's going to have a new hockey boss that's in place to consult with. Because one of the things at this deadline, and one of the things over the last year in particular with Treliving, is it doesn't feel like there's a big enough brain trust from a hockey standpoint at the top. Do you think the Leafs are going to explore adding a president? And if so, like, could that be a solution to some of this at least?
Well, first of all, since Keith Pelly arrived, we've seen the elimination of a lot of the guys that you're talking about, right?
And look who's the most successful, though. It's the Toronto Blue Jays who have a president.
So, outside of Shapiro with the Jays, they got rid of the basketball guy, they got rid of the soccer guy, and they got rid of the hockey guy in Brendan Shanahan. So just to answer your question, I don't think that they're going to go back a year later and say, we were wrong to eliminate that job. So is there a possibility to bring in another hockey guy or another, eyes and ears that can help Brad? Absolutely. Will they give him the business card of president of hockey ops? I don't think so. So I know where you're going, and I do believe that is a distinct possibility. I just don't know we'll see it at that type of level when you went so hard to eliminate it just the year before.
Well, I got to tell you, too, that's discouraging from the standpoint of if you were hoping to pry a top-level executive from another organization, right? Like if you were trying to get Doug Armstrong, think you're getting Doug Armstrong if you're just offering him the GM job? No.
Well, again, if that scenario happened where St. Louis let him go out of his last year of his deal and he came in, obviously he'd want the hammer.
That's what I'm saying.
He'd want the final say. And then that pushes Brad down, obviously, as a guy that just, has a boss and needs to implement, direction. It's still a possibility, but it is the $64,000 question here.
Yeah, big time.
JD, is it Brad? Is it Brad alone? Do you bring people in? I don't have a sense right now in terms of that direction just yet. And we're just going to have to stay tuned.
Yeah. And that's why what you said is right, which is like, as the days go by, the deeper and deeper you get, it's just it's more likely one way, not the other one. Last question for you, Kip, and this is non-Leafs related. Well, kind of Leafs related, I guess. So no move clauses became like a big story at this deadline because it's a stupid percentage of the league now where guys at least have limited no moves.
Yeah.
And if you remove like the rookie contracts from the NHL or like the vet mins, you're talking like half the league now has these clauses. In the NBA, you want to guess how many guys have no move clauses?
Don't tell me under 25%.
One player, Kipper. LeBron James. One.
Okay.
One guy.
Yeah, but they only have like two guys on the court at the same time.
Yeah, fair. Totally fair. Where I'm going with this, though, is we spend all this time talking about state taxes, right? And what an advantage it is for some markets. Oh, my God, the state taxes. Gary had to do 1 million panels on the state taxes. And listen, I think it's something that players want to go to places where there's no state tax. Like, I don't think that the Florida Panthers can build the team they have without having that advantage. But if we're looking at the future of this thing, like if you're just trying to project forward what could actually impact teams, you know who has, like, what the no-move clauses look like? I know you know. Canadian teams. They're all on there. Every player. Canadian team, Canadian team, Canadian team, Canadian team. And if we're talking about competitive balance within the league, at some point, you probably have to look at this as like the NHL, not as the organizations, because GM's the cat's out of the bag. You can't now suddenly start pulling this back and say, well, we're not giving you no move clauses when the rest of the league is. That puts you at a disadvantage negotiations-wise, and we know how much players covet them. But do you think that, are there any conversations that you're having with people right now where the no move clauses have gotten to a certain point now where the league might have to step in and go, you know what? Maybe there's only X amount of these that we can give out to each team, because at some point here, it actually might really hurt the latitude of certain amount of markets like the Buffalo, who got screwed in the Parayko deal, and specifically like the Canadian teams who still are such a major part of keeping this league as relevant as it is.
Well, first of all, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way that it's really hurt markets. It put the Buffalo Sabres in a real tough spot, and they deserve better because
Totally.
they've done such an amazing job in the back half of the season. But I found it an embarrassing situation with Colton Parayko turning down the Buffalo Sabres. And I don't know what the answer is. It's collectively bargained, JD. There's just, you missed the window, first of all, on the last negotiation to address it. There's just no way the players are just going to hand something over back to the owners and change anything here. So it is what it is, but it is a problem. It hurts the Canadian markets. Mackenzie Weegar, who was traded from Calgary to Utah.
Yep.
And he's from Ottawa. And I believe Ottawa was on his no trade list.
Yeah.
And wouldn't go. So, that gives you some indication of how much the players like it and use it to their abilities. The state tax thing is real. It would have cost Colton Parayko $250,000 a year to be traded to the Buffalo Sabres. And I don't know anybody in business or the working world that would volunteer $250,000 back to their employers for getting nothing back.
Totally.
Let's put it that way.
Totally.
So I don't know how it gets addressed. We might have to, the league, the players, they'll push this one down the road.
Yeah. Listen, this new CBA doesn't expire until 2030, which is an issue for a league because, it just became 2026. So you're talking about 4 more years of this potentially being an issue that grows larger and larger. And again, when you look at the taxation and you look at the no move clauses, it's going to become, to me, a far and far greater story. So I think that it's still important to have conversations like this because this is how change ends up happening. You have to address the problem first. And to me, this is very clearly a problem for this league. And if it's going to have, everyone feel as though like a salary cap is put in there to make teams all feel like everybody's got the same shot. Well, then you can't have a bunch of the organizations playing by materially different rules when it comes to no move clauses that now everyone just basically gets and taxation. The league's going to have to take a look at it at some point. The problem is it's not going to come soon. Kipper, I know you spent a lot of time doing this. You got your show later today. Thanks for taking so much time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, keep up the great work, JD.
Thanks, buddy. Nick Kypreos of Real Kyper and Bourne. Catch the show later today. All right. So, boy, a lot there. And this is the way I'll wrap this up. Again, everybody's afraid to be like, oh, you're chasing away the talent. Oh, you're chasing guys out of town. Ooh, the media, the fans. Oh, yeah. Shut up. At this point, the idea that the Leafs would be, with the roster currently in the position that it's in, saying, you know what, we're moving off of pieces to make sure that we can try to extend the competitive window with Austin Matthews and William Nylander, who already got all of their primes with all of the assets. The reason why they're in the position they're in part, is because those guys did not come through in the biggest moments. Like Matthews still does not have a huge goal in a huge game. Still. We're 10 years in, baby. Like, the idea that you would go, well, we got to move Matthew Knies, or we got to make a trade of a younger piece, a long-term stable piece, in order to find other wingers, other players, more depth to help make this work, to me is nuts. The path should be clear. The path should be, you're having conversations with Matthews. If he wants to re-sign, okay, he's the guy that you're choosing. You want to build around him. He's in it for the long haul. He's in it for potentially rebuild. Great. He's the captain of your team. Awesome. You keep him? Fine. I don't think that the number can be record-breaking. Like, this guy has always gotten top dollar. And to me, there would actually have to be some sort of financial sacrifice. It was going to be long-term. Like, he can't get the Kaprizov money because he just hasn't produced the same way the last couple of years. It's a riskier contract to sign as he enters his 30s. But if he's down, sure, you keep a talent like Austin Matthews. You certainly don't want to lose him under the gun when he has a full no-move clause. No one's saying, like, just trade him, just move on, just trade him. But it's a situational thing at this point. But if you're keeping Matthews, I think the solution has to be, well, you got to be trading Nylander. Because the idea that you're keeping the two of these guys and trying to pivot the rest of the roster around them so that you're competitive over the next couple seasons, which is what they have left in their prime, and which is when you have nothing coming up, the cupboards are empty and the roster is depleted and the organization is in flux. Like, that just doesn't compute to me, and I don't know why we can't be real about this. Anyway, subscribe to this podcast, leave 5 stars, reach out anytime, at JD Bunkis. I want to talk about the 83 points last night, something that I feel like we're all in line with this. We're all in line with the same feeling, so let's just all say it out loud. That's next.
BetMGM, authorized gaming partner of the NBA, has your back all season long. From tip-off to the final buzzer, they're ready for every exciting moment and every highlight play that comes throughout basketball season. Download the BetMGM app. BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 19 years of age or older to wager. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you have any questions or concerns about your gambling or that of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. BetMGM operates pursuant to an operating agreement with iGaming Ontario.
It's cold out there, folks. Minus 35. Buckle up if you're going out today. And
leave the winter blues behind when you give and get away at Canadian Blood Services. Escape to a donor center this winter and leave feeling a little lighter, brighter, and better. And when you book an attend a blood or plasma appointment, you have a chance to win round-trip tickets for 2, courtesy of Air Canada Foundation. No donation required. Give and get away this winter. Book at blood.ca/getaway and experience what you get when you give. Conditions apply. See full draw rules for details.
University Health Network right here in Toronto has been named the #2 hospital in the world, and for the 8th year in a row, #1 in Canada. Hi, I'm Kevin Smith, President and CEO of UHN. Together, with your support, we're turning discovery into breakthroughs and breakthroughs into better outcomes for patients. All of us, united, are creating the best care for our community and our future. We're deeply grateful for your support. Find out more at uhnfoundation.ca.
It's Subway's Lunch, Not Luck, where it's a win every day of the week. What's the win? Take it away, Kyle.
It's Subway's Meal of the Day, only $7.99. A 6-inch sub, a drink and chips, or 2 cookies. Enjoy a different sub every day, like Veggie Delight on Monday, Cold Cut Combo on Wednesday, or even Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki on Sunday.
That's right. 7 days, 7 meals, $7.99 each. Subway's Meal of the Day. Winning isn't luck, it's lunch.
Price and participation may vary. Extras, bottled beverages, taxes, and fees for delivery additional.
Callum, why do diamond wholesalers love and hate Spence?
Well, they love that for 48 years, we've paid up front. But they hate that we reject 70% of their diamonds. We're picky.
You think choosing diamonds is picky? Try dating.
2-carat oval-created diamond starts at just under $2,600 at Spence.
Brilliant diamonds, better prices. Come see the difference at Spence.
Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
Hi, I'm Jessica from Speedy Glass. So here's what usually happens. You get a small chip in your windshield, you hit one pothole, and suddenly you're staring at a crack. Trust me, I see this every day. But don't worry, we've got you. At Speedy Glass, our certified experts will handle your replacement, so your new windshield is as solid and safe as before. It's easy. Just go to speedyglass.ca and pick the location and time that work for you. So book today at speedyglass.ca.
Speedy Glass Repair. Speedy Glass Replace.
These days, it's hard to believe what you read, what you see, or even who to trust. At Bergmanis Prera, we've been building trust for over 30 years. If you've been involved in a serious accident, call Bergmanis Prera for advice that you can count on. Consultations are always free, and there's no obligation. I'm Ron Prera, managing partner. At Bergmanis Prera, honesty, integrity, and expertise aren't just words. It's my promise to you. Bergmanis Prera, you have a friend who's a lawyer. Contact us at bplawyers.ca.
In Canada, opening a business bank account can take weeks. The fees on your account are endless, and your money earns nothing. Honestly, what the We hear you, but your WTF is also why there's Float. Float is a complete finance platform with business accounts that open in minutes, charge 0 fees, and earn up to 4% interest. It's a business account that makes sense and money. So let's take back our WTFs and celebrate why there's Float. Open your account today at floatfinancial.com.
Time to head out the door, but your garage door won't cooperate. One quick call to Precision Garage Door Service and the experts are on site, fast, getting you back on your way. Precision Garage Door Service now proudly serves the GTA with honest pricing, quality workmanship, and service you can truly trust. Visit precisiongarage.ca and experience the precision difference.
Precision Garage Door Service, a name you can trust.
As Canada stares down economic uncertainty, we're ready with a plan to protect Ontario. We're fighting to defend every job, building new nuclear facilities, speeding up approvals, diversifying our trade, bringing opportunity and good jobs home. Because this province doesn't just sit back, we build. That's how we protect Ontario. Learn more at ontario.ca/protectontario. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Now until Wednesday, visit Shoppers Drug Mart for the bonus redemption event and get more for your points. Offer valid in-store and online.
Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Congratulations to Bam Adebayo. 83 points on a random Tuesday night against the Washington Wizards. And no, I did not watch it. I have since gone through and seen the condensed highlights of what he accomplished. And yeah, I think that this is going to be met by everybody basically in the same way. 83 points is unbelievable. No matter how you shake it out, it's unbelievable. It deserves a lot of credit, even though a lot of it happened with, a pretty suspect finish. 83 points on, I want to say, I don't have it in front of me. I think he took 43 shots and 43 field goals, or 46 shots and 46 field goals.
43 each.
43 each? Yeah, like, my God. I think he missed, what was he, 20 of 43? I think that's what I saw from the field. Yeah, something along those lines. It's like 20 of 43, somewhere along there. It's like, took a million shots in this game, which you got to do in order to get to that point. Yeah, he's 20 of 43. He hit 7 threes in this contest. He went to the free throw line for 43 shots and made 36 of them. And again, terrific accomplishment, deserves a lot of credit. I don't care modern day NBA. I don't care fouling in terms of trying to say that this is not unbelievable. Washington Wizards, whatever you want. And I saw the fouls a lot. It's like he was getting fouled. It's like he was getting fouled all night long. Here's what I will say. Kobe's 81 is something that's pretty sacred to the NBA. And I'm a Lakers hater. And I was not a huge Kobe fan. And he did it against the Toronto Raptors. But it's, in a way, it's like the Wilt 100, yes, it's the benchmark. Yes, I think he got the 100, even though some people don't even believe that he did. There's no tape. There's a little bit of weirdness around it. We can at least admit to that. But Kobe had 81 in the modern day, and he did it in a way where it was like, again, the Raptors were comparable, I would say, to this Wizards team. Like, it wasn't like he did this against one of the best opponents in the NBA. Like, he cooked Charlie Villanueva and Jalen Rose, and it was not a very good Raptors team. But there was something about the very end of this that I think rubs everybody the wrong way, which is Bam Adebayo getting, the intentional fouls and his teammates missing free throws and him staying on the floor for the entirety of it so that he could pass the 81 and get to 83. It feels ugly, and I don't like it. I just don't. And maybe that's unfair to Bam. Maybe that's just me being an old guy who loves to live in nostalgia. But the way that he went about getting it with the intentionally missed free throws, his teammates missing free throws, the Wizards trying to prevent him from it. Like, I don't know. It doesn't sit very well with me. And so a part of this accomplishment is just not going to be celebrated the same way. Like, Nobody's talking about Bam Adebayo 83 the way that they're going to be talking about Kobe 81. Yes, part of it is that he's Kobe and the other guy is Bam Adebayo. Maybe this is different if it's LeBron James or if it's Nikola Jokic or if it's even Luka Doncic or, a star player in the league rather than Bam, who's a 3-time All-Star, who is a fine player, but certainly not a superstar, certainly not someone that has like a large fan base. I don't know. I just feel ugly about it. Armin, you're a Lakers guy. I know. I don't even know if you're not too young to have seen Kobe's 81. But yeah, how do you feel about this?
The most unethical performance
that's the thing.
In NBA history.
Yeah.
Forget the Lakers' perspective. I genuinely cannot ever argue with an old head again if they think the modern NBA is trash. Like, this made my blood boil last night and this morning.
Yeah.
Because why is Bam the one that needs to chase 85? I don't get it. Like, he had the Heat record, which was LeBron 61. He had that beat without the unethical stuff at the end. What reason does he have to chase the last 15 or 20 points? I don't get it. The opposing coach, Brian Keefe, said it wasn't basketball anymore. At
it
no
wasn't. That's the
point
thing.
did
It
you
wasn't a
watch
basketball
Kobe's game and think like, what is this? Why are we doing this? Like, it was just a normal game.
No, you're right. That honestly, it did. That's the way that it felt. It was like, this is no longer an NBA game. This is no longer in the flow. This is certainly not in the spirit of the rules, the spirit of the game. And to me, weirdly, it diminishes a lot of the accomplishment, which was, how many points did he have through 3 quarters? It was it was 62. Yeah, he had 62 points through 3 quarters. And I think that it was obviously very legitimate up until that point. It's like the final 5 minutes of the basketball game where things just went off the rails and you're looking at the highlights of the way that it went down and you're like, yeah, I can't celebrate this the same way. This does feel ugly. And it does, I will admit, I think saying it's a stain on the league is a little far, but it kind of is. It kind of is. All right, quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Chris Mannix.
Bet365 is paying out before the final buzzer.
Check out Bet365's early payout for NHL hockey. When you bet on a team to win and they take a 3-goal lead, you get paid, no matter the final score. And with early payout, you could be on your way to a winning parlay.
Early payout. Just another reason why it's never ordinary at Bet365. An official betting partner of the NHL. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. T&Cs apply.
University Health Network right here in Toronto has been ranked the #2 hospital in the world. Hi, I'm Julie Canville, CEO at UHN Foundation. Everything we do here is made possible by your support. The innovations, the breakthroughs, the world-leading healthcare that transforms lives in the GTA and across the world. At UHN, we're uniting the best teams and talent to create the best care for the people who need us. Get involved today at uhnfoundation.ca.
All in all Corsair, MKC, Edge, and Escape drivers, your upgrade is here. Right now, trade in your current vehicle or terminate your lease and receive $2,000 toward a brand new 2025 or 2026 Lincoln Nautilus or Aviator. Plus, enjoy rates as low as 1.99%. And when you drive a Lincoln, you'll receive complimentary services, including premium Lincoln loaner vehicles during service, because luxury should never be interrupted. Visit TorontoLincolnDealers.com today and elevate your drive.
Stella, help me sound more Canadian.
What do you want to say, Callum?
Spence, engagement rings made in Canada by Canadians.
Made here by folks who really know their craft.
Who take pride in their work.
Who get her done right.
Okay, made here by folks who really know their craft, who get her done right.
Callum, spoken like a true Canadian.
Spence, Canada's diamond experts.
Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
The legendary Yeti thrives in cold environments.
Just like my Subaru, all-wheel drive is like having an extra pair of Yeti legs.
The Yeti's natural habitat is in colder climates, but it's been spotted all over Canada.
Just like Subaru, we go everywhere, enjoying winter with the little ones. They grow up so fast. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
TA Appliances' huge home show savings event is on now. Enjoy TA exclusive savings on all the top brands. Plus, pay no tax, get free bonus gifts with select products, and enter to win great prizes. See the latest innovations in appliances, barbecues, espresso machines, and other convenient countertop appliances to complete any home. With TA's easy financing, you can take advantage of these amazing deals right now and book fast delivery. Shop one of 5 TA locations or online at taappliance.com.
Hey, it's Blake Murphy.
And I'm Matt Bonner.
Join us weekday mornings at 11 as we break down all things Toronto Raptors.
It's the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and wherever you get your podcasts.
CJCL Toronto.
So yeah, I don't feel great about the Bam 83 points. Good news, though, is that one of Toronto's things, like, listen, we got the championship now. We'll always have that championship. But one of the things that we're most famous for, it still exists, but it's at least not the record anymore. Chris Mannix, senior writer and co-host of Open Floor at Sports Illustrated. He joins us now. What's up, buddy? How you doing? Thanks for making time.
Good morning. What's happening?
Not too much. I got to start with this. Like, I got a whole bunch for you, and I didn't watch the whole Bam game. I don't know how much of you caught, but I did see the end, and I don't know, man. It doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit well with me. I want to give the guys flowers without just being like, yeah, this is ugly. I know there's some sentimentality I have for Kobe Bryant. I know the way the league feels about Kobe Bryant, but how do you feel about this situation in terms of the way that we should be talking about it?
Yeah, I was at the Lakers Timberwolves game last night and was watching most of the fourth quarter with some other media members, and it was kind of cringy to watch how it all played out. It's one thing to keep feeding the guy the ball and have him make, contested threes or mid-range twos. And I mean, I don't want to romanticize what Kobe did because he was chucking too.
Sure.
I mean, he was putting up, but he wasn't going to the free throw line 36 times. His team, or making 36 free throws, going to the line 40 plus times. His team wasn't fouling on the other end of the floor to get the ball back. That just felt like a weird pickup game that was being broadcast around the world. Good for Bam. You got the number, and I think you'd probably agree Bam wouldn't be in our top 2% of guys you think would be competing for 50 points, much less 80 points. Yeah. But it was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch, and not a fun way, not something you're going to want to revisit anytime soon.
Well, okay, so I think it was last season where there was that night where Karl Anthony Towns was playing the Hornets, and I can't remember who the Sixers were playing, but Joel Embiid was, the two guys were both going for like the 70-point range. And I remember watching Karl Anthony Towns because I actually was watching that game. I wasn't, I can't remember who the Sixers were playing, but I was watching that Timberwolves game. I was watching Karl Anthony Towns, and it was so shameless that at one point his head coach, Chris Finch, is like, we're sitting you. Like, this is over and done with. We're not entertaining this any further because this is so ugly and so putrid. I can't endorse this behavior. And I think it's a little strange that the Miami Heat, who have propagated this idea that they are the Heat culture and that they do things a certain way and that they put the team over the individual, blah, 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 that they're the group that kind of endorsed this style of play for Bam Adebayo to get that record this way.
Yeah. If Bam was the most unlikely player to chase 80, Miami was the most unlikely team for him to do it on and do it in that way. Now, I could see Miami doing what Phil Jackson did with the Lakers back in that Toronto game, which is keep giving Kobe the ball. Sure. If he's making shots, hey, go for it. Yep. But once that game got out of hand, and this game was over early.
Yes.
Washington's got nothing to play for. They will happily take the loss. They will thank you for giving them the loss. At different iterations of this Miami team under the same coach probably wouldn't do something like this. This was the antithesis of everything that we talk about with Heat culture. They would have let, Bam get his 55, 60, patted him on the back, said, great game. He still would have been celebrated and not have this goofiness that we saw in the aftermath. So it was weird to see Bam putting up these kind of points. I think his season high up to this point was like 30 something.
Sure.
But it was also equally weird and bizarre, I think would be the word I'd choose, to see Miami be the one chasing, such a kind of useless mark. Like, he's not the all-time leading scorer in a game. Wilt Chamberlain is that. Now, if he's closing in on 100, all right, we could have maybe a different conversation.
Fine, yes.
You want to pass Wilt Chamberlain and go for 101?
Yes.
Great. But if you're just passing the guy for second place on the list, I'm not so sure why that was so damn important.
I totally agree. And I just will say, too, that this is what should be something that is just universally celebrated, right? Like a guy putting together that kind of a performance ends up being something that the NBA has to embrace, because, like, what are they supposed to do, right? They can't be like, hey, the NBA social media accounts aren't really going to be posting about the 83-point game or putting it out there. The Miami Heat aren't going to be doing it. But it's like you see the picture of Bam holding up the 83, like the Wilt 100, and look at the replies. Look at the way that the NBA fans are responding to this. I just don't think that this is a good look for the sport in general. So ultimately, this ends up being a flop. All right.
I think too that from an NBA front office perspective or a league office perspective, I could say they didn't love it either. Like, I was on with the league a lot last night, the Jaylen Brown situation going on, and then this coming up. They thought it was equally as cringy. They're still going to do the perfunctory things, performative things, put it on the social media account, all that. But if we sat there and thought it was cringy, I promise you, people in the league office thought it was cringy too.
Yeah, not a great look. Also not a great look, the Toronto Raptors, who continue to just lose to good teams. It's unbelievable. At this point, you would just kind of think like, hey, every once in a while, one just tips your way. One night, things break your way. They've got one impressive win all season, Chris, and it was against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it came down to a final possession. Like, that's it. Every other team that's ahead of them in the standings outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are a completely different team, were sitting everybody. They have no wins against teams that are above them in the standings. And I had a friend text me yesterday, I thought what was the best take on it, which is that the Raptors have created the perfectly mid team. Like, perfect. So not good enough to beat anybody good, but just good enough to beat everybody bad and do it convincingly. Like, you got the Dallas Mavericks in town, guess what? Scratch that in the win column. You get the Houston Rockets last night, and you already know how this game is going to go. And the question I have for you is, what do they do to move themselves out of this? Because, like, this is sort of depressing as a fan, where you feel like you're on this death march towards a playoff series where you're likely going to maybe win a game, which feels very like old school Raptors-y, where, getting in the playoffs is fun and taking a step forward, even though you don't really project to be a championship contender down the line. But they've got these 5 super expensive contracts, a difficult decision to make on RJ Barrett. Where do you think they go from here this offseason to try and begin a process where they can at least move in one direction or the other?
Well, let's start with where they are in the playoff mix here. They are the team that every Eastern Conference team wants to play in the first round.
Correct.
Like I said, I'm in LA. I was at the 2 Knicks games in LA this weekend. Palpable excitement from New York for the opportunity to play the Knicks. Like, they want to keep that 3 seed, assuming Toronto keeps the 6 seed, and play them in the first round. That's the matchup.
I think they beat them 11 straight times, so they should.
They're positively giddy about that possibility in the first round. You're right about the Raptors. Their ceiling is incredibly low for a team that's a top 6 seed right now. And they're one of those teams that, when you hear only in the Eastern Conference, the Raptors are kind of only in the Eastern Conference. If they were playing in the Western Conference, they'd be fighting for a play-in spot on the back end, I think, of that playoff play-in spot. And look, even for Scotty Barnes, would he be an all-star in the Western Conference? Maybe as an injury guy or something like that, but I don't think he'd be among the first guys taken over there. Their ceiling is just too low right now for a team with this many young pieces. Barnes is a great defender, great passer, great playmaker, not a good enough scorer to be kind of the guy right now that you can build around. I think he's got to find a way to become a better scorer. I think their perimeter shooting, obviously, huge weakness. Like, we've been talking nationally about Detroit and their chances to win a championship this year. Yep. The argument against them is they don't have enough perimeter shooting. It's the same argument, really, for the Toronto Raptors. Grady Dick has not worked out. RJ Barrett's putting up a good shooting percentages, but he's not a consistently reliable three-point shooter. You've got to address that in the offseason. And doing that, they've got some guys and they've got some flexibility with some of these contracts. I mean, RJ Barrett, I think, is on an expiring contract next year. Same thing with Grady Dick, expiring contract next year. You put these contracts together, maybe you can go out and get one of those guys that's a better fit opposite of Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. That's got to be the priority. Right now, they don't have that third guy. And I like Colin Murray-Boyles. I liked him in the draft. I was one of the few people screaming, this guy can play. And I think he can play. but he's probably never going to become more than a corner 3-point shooter. So I think that's their top priority this offseason, finding that third scoring option, that perimeter shooter, somebody that can balance out this team. Because right now, as good as they are defensively, as good a passing team as they are, I think they're the best in the NBA. They just don't have enough shooting to get to that next level.
Yeah, they can't shoot and they can't rebound. Like it's kind of hard to win in this league in 2026 if you can't do those two things. And you've got a star player. Like I watched this clip of Dylan Brooks because I watch every Dylan Brooks clip, right? Like he comes across the timeline.
Me too.
I'm giddy. I'm just like, oh, good. Dylan Brooks is speaking. This is the best. He goes through all the players that are ahead of him on the NBA's, I think, top 100 list. Like I can't remember who put it together, maybe ESPN. And when he gets to Scotty Barnes, he was like, nah, those are my favorite guys to defend. You just need to be able to embrace the impact. But yeah, you gap him and he can't shoot. And you're watching Barnes where last night was the first night he hit 20 points following the All-Star break. Like it has not been a great look. And yes, he plays great defense. And yes, he's a good playmaker. But ultimately, yeah, the ceiling of this team, as you mentioned, is unbelievably low. And it's a weirdly depressing season for them because we had years and years and years of Masai Ujiri playing the card of play in for what, right? Like mediocrity was no longer the standard in Toronto. Making the playoffs was no longer just the goal for the Toronto Raptors, that the organization had evolved. And yet here's this team that, is, again, the number one mediocre team in the NBA. So I wanted to talk to you last week about the Jason Tatum stuff, and I want to bring it back to this right now because, listen, the East is incredibly compelling in terms of who could come out of there. Like there's various combinations that could end up being the last four teams standing. The Toronto Raptors, again, not in that conversation. So Tatum comes back. The return looks solid. It's an incredible moment for Boston. But the piece of it that I wanted to talk to you about is, does this say anything about calf injuries? Or are we having conversations about when these surgeries get done? Because it's been a problem for the NBA, right? We've had a lot of these injuries. Teams are terrified of them. Like Giannis suffered he's got a calf strain. And immediately they go, we got to put him on the shelf for a few weeks here. We can't risk re-aggravating this. It's obviously something that is being talked about. Even when you have Steve Kerr yesterday opining that the season is too long, you go, yeah, I think part of this is those particular injuries. Those used to be, and he's not the fastest guy to ever come back, right? Like Kobe came back faster. I think there's a couple of other guys on the list.
Wesley Matthews
on
that list, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
But Kobe was older. Wesley Matthews, not the type of player Jason Tatum is. If this thing goes effectively, do you think that this is going to change the parameters around this injury, or that this is just like, hey, it's a one-off isolated incident with a certain guy?
I think it was, for Tatum's return, it was a kind of a confluence of events that worked out for him. Like he got injured in the best possible city you could possibly get injured, right? Like he gets injured in New York City. He goes to the hospital that night. He wakes up the next morning. He goes to the hospital for special surgery where everybody gets this procedure done. He runs into Dr. Martin O'Malley, who like happened to be working that day, who told him like, we can do this today. So he got this procedure done as fast as you possibly can. Now, I'm not a doctor, but from what I read, like the faster you do something like this, the better your chances are for a rapid recovery. So he was into rehab like within the first week of suffering this injury. So I think there was a lot of things going on around this injury that made it possible for Tatum to bounce back like he did. The way I would answer this is to say that I don't think things are going to change with the calf stuff, because the threat of the long-term injury probably isn't going to go anywhere. It goes back to the year the Raptors won the championship when Kevin Durant came back from that calf injury, popped his Achilles. Like everybody stares at that and says, oh my God, we can't have that happen. So if a guy like Wembanyama or Anthony Davis, or more recently Giannis, comes up with that type of injury, they're going to be on the long end of a recovery time, and nothing is ever going to change that. Now, one thing that might change is all the things I mentioned about Tatum. Like if you get a guy that pops his Achilles, you probably want him on a private jet to New York City within 24 hours of having that procedure, because this works. Like Jason Tatum is proof that if you do things his way, there is evidence that you can get back within 9-10 months onto a basketball court. And not just onto a basketball court. He's not getting dropped into mid-November games. He's getting dropped into a playoff push on a team that's fighting for the number one seed and is going into a playoff. So that tells me that he really is recovered. He's not just recovered to ramp up. He's really recovered enough to get back into this type of situation. So I think the only thing you take away from Tatum is, hey, you got this injury, do it right away. Don't waste time. Within 24 hours, have the surgery, attack the rehab, and maybe you can get back within 10 months.
Yeah, he's hard capped at 27 minutes right now. Like, that's been 3 contests. Is like, hey, you're getting 27 from Tatum. And I'm very curious to see how this plays out in terms of you get in the playoffs, and what happens if you're in Game 6 against the New York Knicks and it's an elimination game, and what the conversations are like with this team in terms of pushing him past certain thresholds or just having hardline rules going like, hey, Tatum, we're just not going to play you. Because to your point about Kevin Durant, that became a little bit more understandable because he was playing in an NBA Finals, right? That he made that decision. And then there was a little bit of revisionist history with him where in the moment he said he was fine with the decision. Then afterwards he started talking a little bit more like maybe he didn't have the full understanding or the full scope to make this decision properly. And with Tatum, the biggest thing that I can think of in terms of a fallout is like, if this guy does sustain an injury, like if this doesn't end up working out, what that actually means for the Boston Celtics, and that maybe this ends up actually flipping and pivoting, going the other way with these athletes where they're like, yeah, now we're not never coming back, but I'm being like over the top with this. We're going to take so much time with these Achilles injuries that you're going to see timelines actually even expand further.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. And you only have to look at the 2 guys that suffered their injuries right around the time Tatum did. I mean, Damian Lillard and Tyrese Halliburton. Now, they're both in very different situations. Yep. And if we're being honest about this, like if the Celtics had their record reversed, Tatum wouldn't be playing.
Of course.
Like the Celtics would be fighting for their draft pick, and they'd say, you know what, take the rest of the year off. But yeah, I mean, if Tatum winds up struggling, down the stretch, struggles in the playoffs, I think that will be part of the data that's processed here. I've talked about this a little bit and I've written about it. Like Tatum is trained by Drew Hanlon, who trains a lot of guys, including some of the guys I think on the Raptors, like trained by Drew. Throughout this process, Drew Hanlon also worked with Zach LaVine during his injury year. And Zach LaVine had a different injury, right? He had an ACL injury. And he came back relatively quickly from that injury. Came back in January of the following year, 8 months or so from when the injury happened. When he came back, he wasn't Zach LaVine. He didn't have anywhere near the same player. And he wound up getting shut down after 2 months of playing with the Bulls. That was instructive for Drew Hanlon, who I believe passed that on to Jason Tatum and said, look, come back, but understand when you come back, you're not going to be your former self. And make sure when you do come back, you're the closest thing you can possibly be to your former self. So it's certainly everything's going to be informative for players on how they bounce back. But look, I think Tatum coming back right now is good for him because I don't think he's going to be on this minutes restriction when we get to mid-April. I think the Celtics, they need this 5-week stretch to get him from 27 to 32 to 35 and then being completely comfortable with him playing whatever he has to play in the postseason. That's why when Tatum said, I've got a date in the calendar circled where I'm going to come back, I am certain the Celtics said, here's the date where you have to come back or else we're going to put you on the shelf the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think, we've been so pushed into the load management era as basketball fans that like guys playing back-to-backs, we clutch at our pearls. We're terrified of our guys actually playing basketball games. And to me, it's like if Tatum's healthy and his doctors have greenlit the situation, and he wants to play basketball, this is sort of a bit of a no-brainer. And now I think that it is having a bit of an effect on basketball fans where they're looking at this situation and like, I don't think a lot of fan bases love the Boston Celtics, certainly not on the Eastern side of things. But even for me, I look at this and go, man, how refreshing is this? Like, how great is this that this guy wants to come back and play basketball and that he's prioritizing getting on the floor over doing what he could have easily done, which is collect the checks, watch his team go through a postseason run. They don't win without him, and then he gets to make the glorious return next year. So I think he deserves a lot of credit.
He does, and he recognized the moment too.
Yep.
Like the Celtics before Tatum came back, they were plus 900 to win the championship, which is insane.
Yeah,
like
I know.
Look, I'm a voter for all the awards. Like I Sharpie Joe Mazzulla's name into Coach of the Year like a month ago. Like you got to be kidding me with some of the guys that he's maximizing on this roster. Neemias Queta couldn't play in Sacramento. All of a sudden, he's a starting center on the Celtics and one of the most improved players in the league. And he's not the only one on that roster that's doing it. Look, I think Tatum, I agree with all the things you said there about he could have come back, been the conquering hero returning, the guy that pushes them over the hump. But he's looking at this league and say, all right, we're already plus 900, the second most favored team to come out of the East before I come back. Now we jump to plus 550 when I come back. We're the favorite to come out of the East. And look, we're going to be an underdog against whoever comes out of the Western Conference. But the Western Conference playoffs is going to be Game of Thrones. It's going to be just a street fight every single night, every single series between these teams. One of those teams might come out a little more shop-worn than the Celtics are, which levels the playing field, I think, a little bit. So I think Tatum understood the moment, the magnitude of the moment, and that's why he pushed so hard to come back.
Yeah, I gotta say it rocks. It just really does. He's always been like, everyone's always kind of mocked him for the Kobe stuff, where they're like, he tries to do the the things where he's Kobe Bryant, does the text message things. People go like, it's corny, it's cringy. This is a real Kobe thing. Like, he came back from the Achilles early. He had the sense of the moment. He wants to play basketball. He wants to win. I really like it. Okay, so you mentioned you are a voter. And it seemed like everybody decided, I think mostly people who weren't voters, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to win his second MVP after his performance against the Denver Nuggets. I made the point on my show yesterday that I actually felt like it was a bit of a tipping point moment for Shai and the conversation around him, that because the Thunder are such a great organization, the way that they've built out their talent, and as good as Shai has been, a lot of it was like, hey, is he a foul baiter? Hey, are the Oklahoma City Thunder likable? Hey, how much talent is around him compared to some of these other teams? Hey, do we like the idea that the Thunder could just walk their way to another championship? I don't know how we feel about it. But here he has a game where he's missing his two biggest co-pilots. He's missing Alex Caruso. And he basically beats the Denver Nuggets single-handedly with this incredible shot making at the end of the game. He gets celebrated in a way that I don't. And again, we're in Canada, so it's always a little bit different with Shai, right? Because it's usually a little bit more complimentary than the negative conversations around him. But did you feel like there was a material shift yesterday when he hit, 2 days ago, when he hit those shots, when he made those plays, that this was like kind of the first standout moment of his career where we started to embrace him a little bit differently as one of the faces of the league?
I mean, I can only speak for myself. Like, I've embraced him as one of that for a while.
Sure.
I mean, I'm the guy that pushed hard for Shai to be Sports Person of the Year at SI successfully. And I believed he should have been considered the face of the league for the better part of the last year. But I think that game certainly resonated with not just casual fans, but like people in front offices were texting me about the MVP. Like, is this the game that really solidified him as your MVP? And I think that's fair. Going up against Jokic, having that type of performance, it was a pretty big statement for Shai at this point of the season. And look, they're in a much more competitive race for that top seed this year than they were a year ago.
Yep.
A year ago, they had the top seed wrapped up in like March. Now they're fighting up San Antonio. And I think the fact that Shai's in the thick of it right now, playing the way he is, beating the teams that he is by playing a certain way, that's going to bode well for his MVP chances. As I go, look, I know people look at Jokic as being the top competition for Shai. I'm looking at Wembanyama. Like, to me, it's Wemby. And I'm honestly, and I've got time to think about it, but the way I was saying to somebody last night who was giving me a pitch for another guy for MVP, is if the Spurs catch the Thunder for the top seed in the Western Conference, there's no way I can't vote for Victor Wembanyama for MVP. I don't care if his numbers aren't as good as Shai's. He's only playing like 30 minutes per game because the Spurs have tried to be judicious with his minutes. But if they can pass Oklahoma City after kicking the crap out of Oklahoma City over several games this year, it's just really hard not to vote for a guy that anyone in the world will tell you is already the best two-way player in basketball.
Yeah, I think that the one that will always stick out in terms of the signature game was the Christmas, where they're coming off of they had beaten the Thunder. It was a highly competitive game. And I was watching with a couple of my family members who are big basketball fans, and we all put big bets on Oklahoma City because we were like, the idea that they are going to lose this game consecutively to the Spurs when they're all going to get up for this in a certain way. And not only did they lose, it was never a contest. Like, it was a beatdown wire to wire for the Spurs. Wemby's been incredible. I think that the scenario that you paint is, a fairly realistic one. The Spurs are so far ahead of the timeline. I've gone from 2 months ago, people saying, yeah, it's probably the year where they're just really good, but they're not quite good enough, and they still need to have the learning experiences. And now you watch them night in, night out, and specifically through that winning streak, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. If they win the NBA Finals, you certainly can't be sitting there going like, this is one of the most stunning championships I've seen in my lifetime.
And he's become, Wemby we're talking about, he has become mean too. Like, he's not dirty mean, not like Lou Dort kind of playing dirty, Draymond Green kind of playing dirty. Like, I loved last night when Jason Tatum makes that shot in the second half and Wembanyama gives him a forearm shiver that drops on the ground after the play. Like, that's like old school physical basketball. Like, okay, you want to come into the paint, you want to take a layup, where you're going to pay the price for it on the back end. He's done that a lot this season. He has graduated from being this kind of smiley, happy-go-lucky guy who's just really good at basketball to being this more surly version that's about being good at basketball and winning these games definitively. That was a a fun moment. You could see Tatum sprawling on the ground going, what just happened? Did Victor Wembanyama just do that to me? He just knocked me on the ground. I just came back from an Achilles tear 3 games ago, and Wemby does not care. Look, every championship team needs their star player to have that mindset, to have that attitude.
Totally.
And stuff like that gives me optimism that this Spurs team can buck that trend of, hey, we get to the second round, we get beat, then we go on to win a championship the next year. They might be ready right now.
I think that he is so unbelievably important for the league moving forward. And obviously, like, as one of the most talented players, but the care stuff that you're talking about, I think we made a lot of assumptions about him because he's French. I'll speak for myself. Like, he's coming in the league and he's a gigantic French guy. We've gone through the Rudy Gobert experience, right? So it was like, what's the demeanor going to be on this dude? Is he going to wave the white flag as soon as anything's kind of coming into trouble? Or is he going to be worried about the injuries, given that he's got such a unique body? Like, what's this guy going to be like? And here he is at the All-Star game, forcing other guys to care because he's working his ass off. Here he is crying after wins, and everybody looks at that going, "What? Like, oh, this dude cares about the regular season. Oh, he cares about the awards. Oh, he's playing defense consistently. Oh, he's playing as many minutes as possible. Oh, he's giving forearm shivers to Jason Tatum, and he represents the best possible rival and a complete counter to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who at one point at the beginning of the season looked like they were going to rip off, 3-4 championships potentially in a row without a credible stopper. Like, his landing here at this particular moment, I can't think of anything that's been more impactful to the NBA in terms of, like, shifting general narratives for casual fans than Victor Wembanyama, the way he plays and who he is.
It's so good for the league. The All-Star game, how he set the tone early on. We can talk about the format, but it had nothing to do with the format. We've seen formats like that in the past. It had to do with the fact that Victor Wembanyama came out from the opening tip and said, my team's going to play. It's ironic his team didn't win anything, but he came out and said, I'm going to play as hard in the first minute as I did in a regular season game, and that's exactly what he did. If that guy is your standard bearer, you're in good shape for the NBA, because he is going to be just such a generational, all-time great talent. And he's going to couple that with this kind of fierce mindset that we just don't see as often anymore amongst the top of the top type of players. He is going to be relentless every single game that he's in. I'm just excited every time I get to watch the guy.
100%. He's the number one ticket that you want to buy. And his first game here in Toronto, I went and I sat in great seats to watch him, and he finished with a triple-double that included blocks. And I remember the buzz leaving, like, the Raptors lost. They got their clocks cleaned. It felt like you were leaving a playoff game where the home team won, the way that people are, like, buzzing. You know when people are having conversations at the urinals, like, where everybody's talking to strangers in the bathroom? It was one of those games where, like, we can't believe what we just watched. And I think that, yes, he is clearly, I think for me, in terms of all of sports, he's the number one ticket that you want to own.
He's also, just real quick, he's such and I went down to San Antonio last year to do a cover story on him. And what strikes me is he's such an information sponge. You know, it's like, I mean, he reads like these fiction books, and he doesn't just read them from entertainment. Like, he was telling me last time I was there, he read the Witcher series.
Yeah, he doesn't do the LeBron thing of The Godfather, chapter 1.
he's reading it cover to cover. Yeah. And not only reading it, but, like, taking lessons from a sci-fi series like The Witcher and incorporating it into basketball stuff. He found things that he can incorporate to that. Like, he's the one pushing to get Jamal Crawford down there last year to work on the crossover dribble. He's 7'4", and he's asking Jamal Crawford, one of the great isolation guards in history, to teach him some of his tricks. Like, when you combine his talent with his desire to learn, it's not hyperbole to say that this guy could be the greatest basketball player we've ever seen.
Yeah, I know. I do. I think that's really on the table. So how you get a Victor Wembanyama is you tank. You're really poor. Now Adam Silver is talking a little bit of a different tone in terms of, like, hey, changes are coming. And we've seen the proposed ideas that the league has put out there, essentially, of, like, how they're going to try to curb this issue. And I'm curious if you have gotten any clarity, or if you've had conversations with people, of what you think is going to be most likely as they do this implementation of the new tanking rules.
I've had a lot of conversations. Yeah. What is most likely is still hard to filter out, because, I mean, look, they had this 30-team call for executives from every team in the league a couple of weeks ago, but that was really just a venting session because those people have no power. Where the power resides is in the competition committee, and that's GMs, players, coaches, owners, league officials, all represented, who all have to agree on all this, and getting things past the competition committee is very difficult. For example, like one of the league ideas is to take away the pick protections on these deals. I think that will curb some of the tanking. Good luck getting general managers to agree to something like that. That's not like they like those pick protections grease the wheels on trades. They're really not going to go for it unless they're incentivized some other way. Blowing up the system, starting from scratch, that's something that's been pushed by a lot of people around the league. There are a lot of people I've talked to that don't believe this is something that can be fixed with a minor repair. They think you need to just completely blow up the system and come up with something else. Because if you do little things, if you say, for example, a team can't draft from the top 4 2 years in a row, which I think is also on the table. The pick protections are gone. It'll only be a matter of time before teams find their way around it. Look, we're only a few years away from celebrating the play-in tournament and how that changed the course of how teams play at the end of the season. And to a degree it has. But the last couple of years, teams have seen the value in being in that back end of the lottery. Why? Because the Dallas Mavericks got the top overall pick with low lottery odds. The San Antonio Spurs got a top 2 pick with low lottery odds. Like, teams are looking at that saying, you know what? Maybe the league wants us to push for that 10 spot. But if we can sit in 11, 12, or 13, it's not bad for us either. We might be able to get the first overall pick with that. So the point is, like, even if you change some of the rules on the fringes, on the periphery, you're still going to have teams find a way to find a reason for them to mail in games at the end of the season. To me, and to a lot of people, this system is fundamentally broken. It needs to be blown up, and they have to start from scratch doing something else.
It doesn't feel like it's going that direction, though, right? Like, doesn't it feel more like what they're going to do is small incremental changes to start and try to continuously adjust year over year?
I mean, look, that's what they've been doing. So I think that's certainly possible. And look, Adam Silver had some ominous language at the Sloan conference this week about how we're going to make radical changes. Yeah. But you're probably right. It's probably going to be smaller ones. I'm just telling you, there are a lot of GMs that I've talked to that don't believe it's going to work, that think this thing has to change in a radical way to have any kind of meaningful change.
Chris, I really appreciate the time this morning. Thanks so much for doing this, man. It was great to get to chat with you.
You got it. Anytime.
Yeah, take care, man. Chris Mannix, senior writer and co-host of Open Floor at Sports Illustrated. Okay, so I think that a few things there. One, just you can't keep having a league where being in the play-in or being a team like the Raptors this season who is trying to win and again, you can question the way that the Raptors try to build this thing. But part of what saps the joy from this is knowing you'd rather be one of those bad teams who suck than a good team who's trying to win, or a decent team, whatever it is that we're trying to consider the Raptors as being, right? Like, mediocre. Mediocre is possible. I can't envision listen, there's always the sycophantic Raptors fans who are like, they're just living in the moment, and that goes to all fan bases, right? That's me joking about McKee yesterday where he wanted the Leafs to beat the Habs. Some people just can't root for tanking. It's just not a part of their equation. But for the modern day sports fan, I've said this before, but you're a time traveler. You're always living in the past. You're living in the future. You're living in the present. You're all over the place. And it's really hard to say, hey, would you rather be the Raptors right now? Or would you rather be a team with some of the best lottery odds in the NBA to grab one of the, like, DiBiase or Peterson? Like, I think the answer is pretty clear. I think that it's kind of obvious where you would rather be in the standings. So whatever they end up doing with the tanking measures, it has to be so, not punitive, but it has to be such a game changer that if you are a team like the Raptors and you're trying to win, but you don't make it, it doesn't work out, it doesn't end up being successful, that you don't look like the stupidest team on planet Earth. Because I'll be honest, like, to me, this Raptor season is deeply depressing. Like, I don't care for it anymore. I'm over it. I'm over it. You can't beat any good teams. Could Barnes continue to develop? For sure. He's 24 years old. Do I think he's going to become Jason Tatum? Do I think Darko was right calling face of the league? I don't. I don't think that's in there. I don't think the Brandon Ingram trade has worked out. Sorry. I think you'd rather have the pick. You'd rather have the pick than where you're currently at, which is a team that tries to funnel a bunch of stuff through Ingram late in games and has really no secondary plan. This season, as of this moment, is no fun. You can say it's fun. You're allowed to feel it's fun. For me personally, Just the way it is to me. They're going nowhere. They're right in the middle. I don't even know how big of a step they took this year. Like, I look around the roster, it's like, yes, CMB is a great piece. Barnes had an awesome season defensively. Ingram obviously can score. I don't know if that was ever a question. What else are you really pointing to? Like, okay, you figured out that Shed and Quickly are solid together, but not championship. Like, again, I like trying to win a championship in sports. I think we've gotten too obsessed with ring culture in general and makes it harder to enjoy some of the other stuff. But to me, like, this isn't even an innocent climb. It's like you've already climbed to the very top of the precipice of what they've got here, and it's kind of a nothing burger. It's kind of what everybody feared at the very outset of the season. It's what the fear was for me when I didn't like the Ingram trade to begin with, was I was like, what is your ceiling as a group? What is your ceiling as a team? Maybe they can tweak it. Maybe they can figure out creative ways with RJ Barrett where they move him for 2 pieces and those 2 pieces work. You trade off a Grady Dick. Like, who knows? I think it's going to be really tough. I think it's going to be really, really, really difficult. And the way that you have it set up right now with the tanking is that you'd rather have a fan base, you'd rather have a fan like me go, I'm more compelled with you being crap than you being decent. And that's not good. So they've got to shift that. They have to shift that because I shouldn't feel this way. And I know there's a lot of people who feel the exact same way that I do. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and crazy action with the Baltimore Ravens. They nixed the Crosby deal. They set the NFL Twitter on fire last night. And now they signed Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals, their pass rusher, who before last season, when I think he had 4 sacks, the 2 years prior, he had 17.5 in both of those seasons. He's 32 years old, but they signed him to a 4-year, $112 million deal, and they retained their pick. So it feels like they're kind of coming out rosy on this. But that and more next.
We are your home of the Toronto Raptors. Catch the action on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, streaming on the Sportsnet app, and at sportsnet.ca/590.
We're building the future of nuclear energy right here in Ontario. The first small modular reactors in the G7. The first large-scale nuclear facilities in decades. Creating over 150,000 new jobs, delivering new opportunities for workers, securing our future as an energy superpower. That's how we protect Ontario. Learn more at ontario.ca/poweringOntario. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
It's Subway's Lunch, Not Luck, where it's a win every day of the week. What's the win? Take it away, Kyle.
It's Subway's Meal of the Day, only $7.99. A 6-inch sub, a drink and chips, or 2 cookies. Enjoy a different sub every day, like Veggie Delight on Monday, Cold Cut Combo on Wednesday, or even Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki on Sunday.
That's right. 7 days, 7 meals, $7.99 each. Subway's Meal of the Day. Winning isn't luck, it's lunch.
Price and participation may vary. Extras, bottled beverages, taxes, and fees for delivery additional.
The legendary Yeti thrives in cold environments.
Just like my Subaru, all-wheel drive is like having an extra pair of Yeti legs.
The Yeti's natural habitat is in colder climates, but it's been spotted all over Canada.
Just like Subaru, we go everywhere, enjoying winter with the little ones. They grow up so fast. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
Save the date. On March 21st and 28th, Lotto's 649 Super Draw is back with 25 guaranteed prizes of $20,000. Plus the classic $5 million jackpot and the growing Gold Ball jackpot. You could find your possible. It's all happening on March 21st and 28th. So get your tickets for the Lotto 649 Super Draw, because with so many guaranteed prizes, somebody's gonna win. It could be you.
Now that Volksfest is back, the phones at Volkswagen have been very busy. Volkswagen, how can I help?
1.99% financing for up to 36 months on the 7-seat Atlas, the affordable Taos, and more? You can't be serious.
We are. And don't make any payments for 90 days.
90 days? That's a lot of days.
It sure is. But Volksfest is only on until March 31st at your local Volkswagen dealer.
March 31st? I gotta go.
Don't miss our biggest deals of the season at Volksfest. Conditions apply.
Volkswagen.
It's not St. Patty's without shamrocks.
It's not a gift without a bow. It's not a bachelorette without sashes. And with thousands of products under $5, it's not a party till you stop to Party City. Party City, Canada. Now it's a party.
When one dripping chicken sandwich won't do, why not have two?
Pretty good, but what else you got? The audience needs to know these sandwiches from St. Louis Bar and Grill are all you can eat.
When one dripping chicken sandwich won't do, why not have a few?
I like it.
That's right. They're big, they're saucy, and they're all you can eat. On for a limited time, our drippin' chicken sandwiches are all you can eat for just $18.99. Only at St. Louis Bar and Grill. Dine-in only, taxes extra.
Ontario is helping you keep more of what's yours. We cut gas and fuel taxes, saving households an average of $435. We scrapped the license plate sticker fee, saving you up to $720. We introduced One Fare, saving commuters on average $1,600 each and every year. And since 2018, we've never raised taxes, keeping costs down for families, workers, and businesses across the province. Learn more at ontario.ca/keeping costs down. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
University Health Network right here in Toronto has been named the #2 hospital in the world, and for the 8th year in a row, #1 in Canada. Hi, I'm Kevin Smith, President and CEO of UHN. Together, with your support, we're turning discovery into breakthroughs and breakthroughs into better outcomes for patients. All of us, united, are creating the best care for our community and our future. We're deeply grateful for your support. Find out more at uhnfoundation.ca.
As your Sunwing financial advisor, be real with me. You freezing? Tired of snowballs, snow squalls, winter entirely? Yeah, me too. What about 28 degrees, ocean views, no shoes, no shirts, poolside service? Sunwing's winter finale sale delivers. Save more on hundreds of resorts now. Do more once you get there. March 29th is your last chance at a winter escape, so book today with your local travel advisor or at...
Meet iPhone 17e. A whole lot for a lot less. With an almighty, all-powerful A19 chip. And Ceramic Shield 2, built to survive this. And this. And a 48-megapixel fusion camera with 2x optical quality zoom. And double the starting storage of iPhone 16e. And long-lasting battery life for hours of watching the studio.
That's the dream!
And it comes with Apple Intelligence. And you can charge it with USB-C or with MagSafe accessories. And a whole lot more. All for a lot less. Get the new iPhone 17e at TELUS today. Battery life varies by use. Pricing compared to iPhone 17.
Save the date. On March 21st and 28th, Lotto's 649 Super Draw is back with 25 guaranteed prizes of $20,000. Plus the classic $5 million jackpot and the growing Gold Ball jackpot. You could find your possible. It's all happening on March 21st and 28th. So get your tickets for the Lotto 649 Super Draw, because with so many guaranteed prizes, somebody's gonna win. It could be you.
Hey, Ray Ferraro here. If pain is stopping you from moving, footwear and orthotics are really the simplest way to get you back on track. And Kintec does it better than anybody else. I've no question that Kintec has helped me stay active, taken away any barrier to movement that I might have. It's made such a positive impact in my life, I've brought my whole family to Kintec. Book your assessment today at kintec.net.
You know what actually causes arguments? Snoring, back pain, one person wanting to sit up, the other wanting to lie flat. You know what doesn't? The fabric color on the base of your adjustable bed. At Leva Sleep, we make comfortable adjustable beds, better for your back and better for your relationship. During our different color clearout, save up to 60%, plus save the tax. Same better bed, just last year's colors. And when they're gone, they're gone. Leva Sleep. The better bed.
Did you know the plasma in your blood is used to create medications that boost the immune system of people fighting cancer? Advancements in clinical care have led to new life-saving uses for plasma, and with that, a new need for donors. Canada needs more blood and plasma donors than ever before, because we're saving more lives than ever before.
Help Canada reach 1 million new donors by 2030. Book an appointment today at blood.ca/plasma and experience what you get when you give. Canadian Blood Services. Who's saving who?
Hey, it's Nick Kypreos.
And I'm Justin Bourne.
We're diving deep into everything happening in Leafland and the biggest stories around the NHL.
Real Kyper and Bourne, weekdays from 4 to 6 on Sportsnet, Sportsnet 590 The Fan, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Little acts of kindness in a time when it seems everything is hopeless is one small way to make things better. And one simple act you can take today to have an immediate and direct impact on your community is donating blood at your nearest Canadian Blood Services donation center. This small act can save multiple lives. The need is always there, and it can bring a sense of contribution to a world in need of solutions. Choose a moment of hope today. Make a donation appointment by visiting blood.ca, the Give Blood app, or call 1-888-2-DONATE. Brendan Brown. I talked a little bit about the Crosby trade, or the non-trade.
Yeah.
Baltimore Ravens found their way out. They signed Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year contract. I feel this is... My brother's a huge Ravens fan.
Okay.
Like I'm tied into how Ravens fans feel. So is one of his best friends. I think this is bad juju. Like I don't think that this should work out for them because, okay, listen, let's put it this way. So if you don't know, Max Crosby gets traded for the 14th overall pick and something in the 20s. Baltimore Ravens deal 2 first-round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders. The league goes nuts. They're like, holy crap, the Ravens are all in. They've grabbed one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL, a guy who, by the way, isn't just a pass rusher, but plays incredibly well in the run game. His stats are incredible, right? Like if you look at plays in the backfield, sacks, pressures, all of these things, Max Crosby's like 1 to 3 in basically every statistical category of note for defensive end. He looks like the kind of guy who fits in Baltimore. Like he just has that kind of swagger where you go like, hey, next great defensive player. He fits the Baltimore mold. Last night, out of the blue, it gets revealed that he is not going to be a Baltimore Raven, that they don't like he doesn't pass his physical. We didn't get that right away. We just got a statement from the Raiders that Schefter retweeted where it was like, what did it say?
I think it basically just said that the Ravens have rescinded their offer.
Yeah, I think they said walked back.
Yeah.
I think they said walked back the deal, which is pretty strong language from the Raiders.
Yeah.
So I find this fascinating on a lot of different levels. One is, okay, clearly if Max Crosby just didn't pass the physical and the Ravens doctors thought, nope, this knee sucks. The surgeon that did this work did not do a great job. We don't trust that he's going to be the same guy. Fine. But it sure doesn't feel like that on the outside. It sure feels like the Ravens got cold feet. That they traded 2 first-round picks, that Trey Hendrickson did not agree to a contract with somebody, and that he was still sitting out there, and that, again, they traded for a guy that his knee is not done healing.
Yeah.
He just got off crutches. His doctor took to Twitter, outlined that this was always going to be the scenario. He's looking great. His doctor, by the way, I think is the dude who traded Tom Brady. Like, he's a pretty damn good doctor, and if you're that surgeon, you've got as much on the line as Max Crosby does, maybe if not more, because you're the dude that did the knee that didn't come back together for an NFL superstar. I don't think so. So that guy put out his statement right away. It was like, no, the Ravens are being cowards. And it sure seems like that's the case to me. Again, I don't have all the information. It doesn't seem like anybody does. But it's hard not to read this as Baltimore chickened out, Baltimore screwed over the Raiders, and just immediately pivoted to Trey Hendrickson, who is not the player that Max Crosby is, certainly not. But if you can have 2 first-round picks in Trey Hendrickson or no first-round picks and Max Crosby, I think the answer's fairly clear here. And so I think that's what they did. It's shady. It's shady as hell. And I think, I really do. I think that this has put out bad energy into the universe, that there's just no way that this, I don't want to believe that there's a way that this works out for the Ravens, even though I don't really care for the Raiders.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, you mentioned like the juju about it. The Ravens have never traded a first-round pick in their organization's history. So this was obviously a huge move for them. They were willing to kind of go all in, Lamar, everything, with all the changes they've made this offseason. So, yeah, to hear that last night, I was shocked, and I couldn't believe it. But then you see this morning the deal with Henderson, and you say, oh, okay, maybe this does make a little bit more sense. Maybe you see where they're kind of going with it.
No, the fact that they signed Trey so fast, I'm sorry. Like, let's put it this way. Truth serum time. If Trey signed with the Dallas Cowboys at a day one, like if he had agreed to terms with the Dallas Cowboys or whatever, some other team, you really think that they're reneging on this trade? I don't. I think that he sat out there. They saw that he was still available, and they went, we're going to pounce on this. This actually makes more sense for us. And that they used that as an opportunity to be like, we're actually getting out of the deal. And you got to feel a little bit for the Raiders here because other teams have done business. And I saw this from fans. They're like, other teams could renege on their trade agreements. And you go, come on, they're not really going to do that. They're not going to. If I was the Cowboys and I don't know, what did they give up for Rashawn Gary? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
But because it was really funny that Gary is actually making more against the cap for the next 2 seasons than Micah Parsons does.
Yeah.
And if you're a Cowboys fan, you just got to look at that and be like, that's why I put you in the hopeless franchise rankings as high as I did, despite being competitive, is that you make moves like this.
4th round pick next year.
Oh, okay. So not the same. No. Not the same at all. I thought maybe it was a second, but no. All right. That's fine. So you're sticking with that trade. But yeah, who's giving you the trade package for Max Crosby now? And now any team that's going out and getting him too is going to be like, what did their doctors see? Like, was that legit? Or are you calling the Ravens? So this is what I call BS on, though. This is what I call big time BS on. So now there's a notion of other teams are going to be hesitant to deal with the Ravens because they can't be trusted. BS. Total. What's the Star Trek guy? Fiction. It was a lie. It never happened. Yeah, that's the teams not doing business with the Ravens thing. Like, there's only so many teams. And if the Ravens were coming and calling you and offering you the best package, if they were saying, like, we want to trade you, like, think about the NFL draft. We have the board, right? They've got that little card that everybody's got where they do the pick valuations, and that's what you make trades off of. You think the Ravens call and the team's going to be like, no, we're not taking the better deal from you. We're not taking pick 14. We're not jumping up into that slot for the player we want because you're not trusted. You're not that team. Do I think there could be something with the Raiders? Sure. Yeah. Tough for the Raiders to pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. So I guess that is one team essentially off the board. But to me, there's just absolutely no way that other relationships around the league are really going to be materially hurt with the Ravens and that other groups are going to have vendettas against them because they backed out of a trade when, hey, the rules are the rules. Because do you want to set that precedent as another organization that if like you wanted to do the same thing, like most GMs would want to do the exact same thing the Ravens just did. Most people would agree. I don't think that there's too many people out there that would say, I'd rather have Max Crosby than Trey Hendrickson and 2 first-round picks. Again, Trey had a really down season. He's an older player by, I believe, 4 years. He's turning 32 this year, so maybe 3 years. But either way, it's a no-brainer for Baltimore if this is the scenario that's outlined. And here's the other thing, though. I need Max Crosby to get traded to a team that plays Baltimore.
That would be interesting.
Like, he's not going to go to the Steelers. He's not going to even go to the Bengals. Bengals are too cheap, and they're not going to give up picks. He's not going to go to Cleveland. But I wish so badly that he would go to one of those teams. And so the subsequent hope is that, and again, Kansas City's not going to do it with their salary cap situation, although they did just add another draft pick. But they're not trading 9. I think they picked 9th. Or I don't know where I honestly, I haven't caught up with the draft stuff yet. Okay. Like I'm just starting to dig in on the NFL draft. And my understanding is so far weak year from running backs, not exactly very deep past the top 10.
They do have the 9th pick.
Yeah. So they're in the zone of the good picks. The Ravens were outside the zone for the good picks in this year's draft. Yeah. Not a lot of quarterbacks. There's Mendoza. He's going first, but outside of that, like, yeah, I don't know too much yet, but the Chiefs aren't going to do it. God, I wish there was a way the Bills could do it.
You know, they just apparently this morning news came out that they restructured Josh Allen's contract to save $40 million this year.
God,
so there's money there.
It would be so cool if the Bills found a way to do it. Yeah. Like if he could go to the Bills, that's what I mean. Like Bills Ravens is a real rivalry game
for sure.
And how sick would it be to see Max Crosby just chasing down Lamar and then getting a huge sack and then pointing at his knee. And the fans in the new Buffalo Stadium just losing their minds as they beat the Baltimore Ravens again. I'm for that. Either way, like that's all I want out of this outcome is Max Crosby faces the Ravens and becomes a rival to the Ravens. By the way, he does like a podcast, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. That next pod episode is going to be good. I want to hear that next pod episode because he was in Baltimore, man.
Well, and he did that video where he did a long goodbye to the Raiders organization, the fans. Like it's
Ravens
hard to go
flock.
back on that now.
I know, dude.
What do you do?
It's a tough look. Yeah. And now, again, if you're a Raiders fan, you just are unbelievably pissed off. You made all these moves, you made all these trades, or all these signings, sorry, and now you're stuck holding on to a guy that you already traded. You can't really bring him back, I don't think.
Hard to, yeah. And hard to move him still.
Like, yeah. Crazy. God, it's ugly. Anyway, Canada, Cuba today at 3 p.m. Can't wait. Huge stakes. Like, you win this game, you get out of the group, you finish first in the group. You've never done this. Ennis outlined the case yesterday. Like, there really isn't enough pressure on this team, this organization in general, year over year. And what I find is really cool about this group is, like, man, they're not hitting a lick. Like, it's just they're getting nothing out of Edouard Julien. Edouard Julien. Edouard Julien is just an empty stick, hasn't done anything for them. Josh Naylor's been pretty underwhelming, especially when you consider, like, what he's actually produced at the plate versus the huge error that he made in that game that would have made this one inconsequential. But massive, massive game for Canada. I'll have more on that tomorrow, and as well as Jackie Redmond. We'll see you then.
University Health Network right here in Toronto has been ranked the #2 hospital in the world. Hi, I'm Julie Canville, CEO at UHN Foundation. Everything we do here is made possible by your support. The innovations, the breakthroughs, the world-leading healthcare that transforms lives in the GTA and across